What's up, everybody? Welcome to Bitcoin Radio. This is the Bitcoin Hour. I'm your host, Joe Blackburn, and I'm so proud and so excited to have on Tim Pace today. He's going to be joining us here shortly. It's been kind of a good week for everybody for the last, I guess, probably the last 7 or 8 days now that we've seen this bump and hold into the 11,000s, and we're going to talk a little bit about that today, maybe, if I can get Tim to agree. But nevertheless, let's kind of go ahead and get started. I'll go ahead and introduce Tim. Tim, why don't you say hello?
Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's good to be here.
Glad to have you on, Tim. Tim, you've kind of gotten a little bit of notoriety recently. You were the subject of part of the conversation between me and Jeff Kardakis from CI. And, obviously what you've been doing has kind of been taking hold, hasn't it?
Yeah, it really has, Joe. I'm very encouraged by the following I have and, by the progress I've made, and people are learning right along with me, and it's a good thing.
Tim, I kind of feel like your journey, your experience over the last 3 months is one that is like how people get big, right? Like I was thinking about this yesterday, and we talked on the phone yesterday, and when you first started this, and as I started watching you, it's like, dude, they could make a movie out of this guy one day if he turns out to be like the next genius, I mean, it's just interesting stuff.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, Joe. It means a lot coming from you, bud.
No doubt, brother. Okay, Tim, why don't we start before we even get into like the whole story? Let's just start with like, what do you do right now? Like right now, you are a moderator on CCT, and let's just kind of start about from the beginning. Like, how did that even happen for you, from your perspective?
Whenever I started posting in CCT, my main goal was to not hinder anyone. Like whenever I saw a new person posting, I went out of my way to help them, and I think that started my journey in crypto was my desire to help people, and it's also transferred into the trading. But time progressed, y'all were looking for a new mod, and you called me one day, and I didn't even volunteer for the job. I didn't think I had a chance, but whenever you called me, I was very intrigued, and I appreciated the call. It meant a lot. So whenever I became a mod, I took it serious, and I figured I better create some good content and show them my main business.
No, Tim, I remember very clearly, like, and most people don't even know this, or they won't remember it, but maybe a few of you will. But I had made a post that we were actually looking for another moderator in Crypto Coin Trader, and we actually were looking for two, I think. And you specifically was one of the people, like, I knew for a fact would want the position, right? And then I looked everywhere. I didn't get a like from you. I didn't get a comment. I didn't get anything. I was like, wait, I was talking to Ben Barlow. I was like, Ben, Tim didn't, because me and him had already talked about you. I was like, Tim didn't even like acknowledge the post. Maybe he doesn't even want to do that kind of stuff, And I was like, I don't know. Like, I'm still going to talk to him. Like, I've at least got to give him a chance to say no to me. I mean, I'll at least do that. And so I called you. I was like, I think what I said to you initially was, Tim, why didn't you even like respond back to the post if you're interested?
The reason why is I saw a few people that I really respected, and I think they were really joking, but one of them volunteered to be a mod. So I stepped back because I was like, well, I really respect her. So, but she was joking. So, I mean, you had told me that over the phone. So it was one of those things where I kind of backed off because I have a lot of respect for the vets in this community, and but it worked out for the best. I mean, I didn't want to. I don't know why I didn't comment. I should have commented. I really did want to be a mod.
Well, it worked out great for both of us, I think, and we'll take that into the next subject. And Tim, I'm going to kind of preface this a little bit, so just give me a second. Is that I really want everybody to listen to Tim's story tonight, and really take it seriously. Like, Tim did not join CCT as a trader. He didn't even join as a moderator as a true trader. He was just somebody who, enjoyed crypto, was very active, probably thought he knew a little bit, but he was very, very sure that he didn't know a lot of it. And I think it's fair to say, huh, Tim?
Yeah, for sure, Joe. That's perfect way to put it.
Fortunately, I've got a chance to know you pretty well over the last year or so. But it took several months for although Tim, you jumped right in, you became a great moderator and very active and very involved and very thorough and the expectations that we have for moderators. I don't think outside of just some pointers and maybe some feedback, I don't think we've ever had any disagreements or even moderately like harsh conversations, have we?
No, it's been a great journey, Joe, and I've enjoyed every minute of it.
Yeah, me too. I will absolutely agree with that statement. But something happened about 3.5 months ago, somewhere in between there, where Tim kind of just took the reins himself and said, "I'm going to learn to trade." He was tired, and I don't want to speak for Tim too much here, but he was tired of just not knowing what to do. And we'll get that from his own words. I know the story very well. And so obviously, Tim, I don't mean to tell your story for you, especially while you're on the call. But nevertheless, Tim went out of his way to publicly explain to everybody that he didn't know what he was doing and that he wanted to learn to trade. And thus began the hashtag WTFIDK, which means what the do I know, right? Right, Tim?
That's right. That's right. I started and I wanted to make sure everybody knew I didn't really know what I was doing. So that's why I started adding that to my post. And nobody really cared at the beginning. I mean, I actually started trying to post charts long before 3 months, probably about 6 months ago, but it took months before I actually started even getting understanding of what to do. That was my goal, was to post a chart and get ridiculed for it and learn from that ridicule, and it
Sure.
worked. I think the community really took hold once I started learning, and they saw me learning, and they were like, "Whoa, we've seen this guy go from absolutely horrible to somewhat decent," and I have a lot of people to thank for that, but it's been a very intriguing journey.
Absolutely, Tim. Well, I'll say this about you too, Tim, is that your persistence to learn has been unmatched as far as I'm concerned. It's not easy for folks listening. It's not easy for people to put themselves out there in the crypto space. The moment you say something, or the moment you say you don't know something, oftentimes, you're held accountable to that like forever. And Tim took a quite different approach. I would even say one of the most unique posts that I remember that you had written, kind of overviews the entire thing that we're talking about right now, Tim. But that post to me was very endearing and very impressive for many different reasons, but essentially said this. And again, this isn't word for word, but it was that, my name's Tim Pace and I don't know what the hell I'm doing. And I'm going to learn to trade and I want to do it. And I want you guys to learn with me. I don't remember the specifics. I just remember that was the context and that's what you meant. And I loved it, Tim. And you didn't even get it approved by me or anything. You just said, I'm doing this. And I was immediately attached, immediately wanted to follow you myself and thought, how awesome is this journey going to be? Tim, what was the inspiration behind this? I know we kind of touched base on it a little bit, but let's specifically talk about what made you eventually say this.
I was talking to some people one day on Facebook, just having a regular chat, and they started talking about trading a bit, and it was like in the comment section of a crypto page, and they started using terms like MA, moving average, and I didn't know what MA was, and I was really embarrassed to even ask them. So,
Sure.
it was just it was time for me to learn some of the basics of TA, so I didn't look like such a fool when I was talking to people, because I've been in the industry a while and people have seen me progress, but I just haven't taken the time to learn that side of it. So
Well
whenever
said.
I decided I'm going to learn this, and I'm going to learn at least the basics, and it just went from there. I said, this is actually more interesting than I thought it would be. So I just started posting charts and getting feedback, and the feedback really helped me grow from CCT. I owe the members of CCT a lot, because all of their different styles has molded me into the trader I am today.
For sure, Tim. I think that was a great way to explain it too. And I'll say this too to the audience is that what most people forget about Tim is that, Tim has not had there was never a point when Tim's like, I'm going to do this for fame. You don't realize the humbleness that this guy possesses. And I have had to like convince him at times, that he deserves the attention. I think even right now, like your charts, Tim, for even though you're just learning and based off of all the things that you've gone through over the last 3.5 months, and obviously the progression has been fantastic, but you're nowhere near a great trader yet. You're self-admitted, you're getting better. I know you feel comfortable with where you're at, and you can kind of go into detail on that in a second, but I know for a fact that you don't ever and have never thought that you're ready. Like, I don't think you even think that even remotely yet. I think you can go and do things, but you're still missing a whole bunch. And I say that to the audience for this reason, is that I've had to convince him that this is a story we're telling. I've had to convince him that he's doing something that's really special, and the results have showed that, because who's the number one Bitcoin author right now on TradingView,
That's
Tim?
me, Heisenberg BTC.
Oh, really? You're the number one Bitcoin author for TradingView. That's the
Yes,
truth.
that is the truth for the last 3 weeks at least.
Yes. And how the heck does something like that happen, Heisenberg?
I think it's mainly because of my analysis. I try to be myself when I explain the charts, and I think a lot of people appreciate that. I'm not trying to blow smoke up anybody's, I'm just trying to explain how I feel about certain things I see on the chart. And people can see me progressing and growing. And I've noticed my following, whenever I became top author, my followers went from less than 100 to 1,000 in
Like
24 hours
overnight.
almost.
Yes.
And it was just amazing to see the response.
And Tim, and I know this about you. I know you have felt undeserving of that attention, but you recognize that stage you're now on, and people have really been attracted to this journey, including myself. Obviously we're friends, but I've also watched this from as an audience member, not as just your friend, as someone who's been very fond and very proud of your progression, but also learning myself. There's a lot of things that I've learned through you that I either was able to reaffirm that I didn't know to be using that way, or if I just simply didn't know something at all, right? And I think that you brought attention to this in a way that has not been done before. That also, that there's a reason why you're the number one Bitcoin author on TradingView, and I think it's because of your interaction and how much time you spend with the comments and the commenting people, but also you're following now on CCT.
Right. And, I spend a lot of time with my followers on TradingView as well. When they comment on my charts, I'm always willing to converse with them. And I think they appreciate that as well. You could tell, I mean, people are starting to post their charts on my comment section to get attention. So, it's flattering, but at the same time, I know I still have a lot to learn. So
Sure.
I want to take this one step at a time. I don't want
Yep.
anybody to think that when I post a chart that this is from a very experienced trader. And I get messages all the time that ask for my help, ask for my assistance and stuff. And I'm just not ready for that. It's just
Sure. Sure.
I'm take this one step at a time and start from the bottom and go up.
Absolutely. And that's your responsibility, right? Just like it's
Right.
mine or anybody else's to admit when you don't know something. And to make sure that people recognize, Tim, that you're doing this as a learning experiment as much as anything else. It may not be an experiment to you, but you're aware of that this is an experiment that is happening for your followers. And this is another point I want to make sure that the audience is listening and really pays attention to is that, no matter if he's great or if he's bad at TA, no matter if he's not, progressing at the same rate as he was a month ago, or if he slows down and where he gets to, it's the interaction and the ability to watch and learn and be aware that these are simple mistakes. These are mistakes that are common. These are mistakes that are hard to identify. All those conversations are happening underneath those charts that you're posting. Not every chart blows up the same way. Not every chart gets as much attention as the other one before, but it's that sequence of events that leads to that pop, or that sequence of events that leads to that drop, right? And that's when you can kind of go back and say, hey, Tim's been talking about the potential of this happening, or he missed this one bad because of this reason. And then you go back through and you say, hey, I missed this, right? It's that journey that is so incredibly engaging. It's a different way of learning, and it's live. It's been happening in real time.
Yeah, I agree, Joe. And every time I post a chart and I know it has the potential to be wrong, and I know I have the potential to be ridiculed, and I'm willing to accept that. That's part of the journey. You try your best to avoid it, but it also helps you sharpen your senses. You just don't want to lay a chart down and then everybody see you're wrong. But if I am wrong, guess what? I'm going to learn from it and I'm going to
Yep.
grow from it, and that's all there is to it. So
And
I
you're
know
also
I
not
will be
hiding.
wrong.
Yeah, you're also not hiding from it either.
Correct, correct. I always admit when I'm wrong. I'll come to that chart and say, "Whoa, I was way off here."
And I think most people they recognize that that you're not posting something that's supposed to predict and be right. I mean, no trader or no chartist is going to be right all the time. No matter if you're the best chartist in the world or you're a beginner, you're going to be wrong sometimes. And I think any of the people that are following your charts, they obviously recognize that you are still learning because you tell them and you remind them so often. But what would you say, like, the most common things that you're hearing from these people are? Are you making the same mistakes, or do you feel like people are actually learning?
The most common thing people ask me or that I come across seems to be, just people asking basic questions about TA, like why is this line here, or why did you do this here, or what is this? What is a Fibonacci, for instance? And it's just the basic things that you learn as you progress in TA, and
Sure.
that's one reason why me and Ben started a TA group where we're teaching beginners the way to trade. And we just started it like last week, and we're at the beginning, but we are progressing. We're teaching some people just the basics of
Yep.
TA. That's all I can really teach. So if
Sure.
you want
Sure.
to know what a moving average is, an MA, like I said, that's really, I remember somebody telling somebody else MA during a conversation, and I said, what the heck is an MA? And I just didn't want to ask them because I look like a fool. And there's a lot of people like that in this, and they're worried to ask in open forum like CCT, I think,
Sure.
sometimes because they think they're going to get ridiculed. And it's not a lie. Sometimes people are trolls, and it's I want people to understand I'm not going to ridicule them for asking me simple
Absolutely.
questions.
Yeah, and I think like there's a big distinguish you can distinguish what you're doing and what somebody who's giving signals or trading advice. Like that's not what you're doing. And I've been privileged to hear you and Ben's conversation and been part of some of them about like the goals of this group that you're doing. And it is for beginners, and it's just the foundations. It's what is resistance, what is support, what's a trend line. It's the basic and core principles to prepare you to learn to trade. And I know that when I made that post to gauge the interest. How big was that? How big was that response, Tim?
Oh man, I think there were 600 comments total. It was out of
Over
this
that.
world. I could not believe how many people responded. I was overwhelmed.
Yeah, it was past 600. I think it even got maybe even crossed 700 at some point. But yeah, I completely agree. I was actually expecting 200, 300, engagements. I mean, if you include likes and loves and hearts and probably some laughy faces, it was probably well over 1.5 thousand reactions of some capacity. And there's no substitute to affirmation than engagement that way. And it was a testament. And people were like, it was like you're Elvis Presley walking around. Like they couldn't wait to hear from Tim and to be part of this group. And we made it clear that we were going to try to keep that group around 25 people. I think we're just around 30, just because there was so much of a response. We tried to keep it. We didn't want to exclude people that we know or we have certain relationships with. And I know Mr. Frederick Meyer raised his hand to ask if he could also assist and help with this group. But the point I'm making here is that the idea of just creating a foundational experience for someone who wants to learn to trade is a really important one. And I really commend you and Ben for stepping out and saying, hey, let's just start with the basics and give these people an opportunity, at least for the first 25 people. And I know the idea behind that, keep this in mind too. If you ask why only 25 people, well, number one, this is of no charge. And this is to help create an educated enough mind to take the next step into trading. When you leave this group, I'm going to speak for you, Tim and Ben Barlow, who's not on the call, but I'm going to speak for you here for a couple different reasons. But we really need to make a disclaimer here. The idea is that you're not going to go get a signal and make money. The idea is not that you're going to be equipped to be a great trader. The idea is that you understand the terminology and enough to know this is where you get started at. This is how I can go learn now. I'm prepared to at least understand the conversation, which is very different than what most traders experience when they first start. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, absolutely, Joe. That's why, I mean, I started 6 months ago and I didn't even get a grasp of it until 3 months ago. And, I got a lot of help from the community, Todd Blackburn, Ash Rulston, Ernie Bills, all those people stepped up to help me. And I really appreciate everything they've done for me. And but it took a long time for me to get it because I did a lot of it on my own. And with that, if I would have had a class like this one, I think it would have ushered me into where I'm at now much faster.
Agreed. That is a obstacle that is very hard to overcome, as you just admitted. What's an MA? Like, you don't even know where to, I mean, you might be able to go and even Google search it, sure. You go Google search MA, but then what do you do with that information? There's a lot of things that indicators and names and words that need to kind of be understood as a group to be able to truly take this seriously. And, you know, identifying and then even becoming comfortable with what these words are actually doing or what they mean is probably, in my opinion, as someone who went through this myself at one point, is probably the hardest part to get past. It's just that learning curve of the learning curve of what do I do with this information? Okay, I know what a 50-day moving average is now. Now what do I do with it? And although you're not going to sit there and you and Ben both aren't going to sit there and be like, okay, because this happened, now you're going to go long. Congratulations, you just made a little bit of money. No, absolutely not. As much as people like those things because people don't want to work hard, you want to reward the ones who are willing to work, who are really excited about this, and who are about to put themselves in a position to at least have that foundation of knowledge to get started to the next step. And like you mentioned, Ash Rolston, Todd Blackburn, right? These are people that have been instrumental in my personal growth as well. So to have people like that to look up to, and obviously I know Todd's videos were pretty inspirational to you too, huh, Tim?
Yeah, absolutely, Joe. I remember watching one. It said the most important lesson for a trader to know. I think that's what the name was. And I remember when I watched it, I couldn't even stop. I had to stop watching it halfway because I got so excited. I ran to Trading View and I had to go play with the charts a little bit. I was lost until I watched that video.
Sure, and that's something that we need to repost in CCT probably pretty soon. But I may even put it like in the comments for anybody who listens, because I agree that I remember that video very very clearly, and I know also that Todd he's been kind of talking about potentially moving his channel away from YouTube too, which would mean that that video won't be available anymore. But you might want to watch it while you can. In other words, people. But well, let's kind of shift a little bit, Tim, to this part, and that is. What are your expectations of what you've done, like this foundation that you've personally built, right? And now you're helping other people. What do you think what's next for you? Like, where do you think this is going to take you?
Joe, I'm really playing it by ear because I haven't been doing it that long, but I have a lot of things in mind. I'd like to help people more as I grow, but I'm not in a rush to, do more advanced training because I still need my own. I still need my own experience. Experience only comes through time. So I'm going to need to gain some experience by looking at charts. And it's going to take a long time before I'm probably confident enough to start a more advanced class for technical analysis where I actually, teach something like Todd would, for instance. But for right now, I'm just taking it one day at a time. Taking as far as I can, Joe. I really didn't expect the response I have right now, and it's overwhelming, but it's flattering at the same time. And I'm enjoying it every minute of it. So
You should.
my plans are to keep enjoying it, and as long as I keep enjoying it, maybe I can make some money in it too. But that's not my main goal. My main goal is to help others and enjoy it. And if the money comes, that's great.
Absolutely. That brings up a good point, Tim. And this is something that I profess for a very long time right now, is that a lot of cryptos and Bitcoin's issues are the lack of understanding everything, not just like, how do you trade, but it's just an uneducated and very immature market. Now, if you look at us from at today's date compared to 2017, we look like, a little bit more grown up. I would say that I would even go as far as say is that we've matured at a exponential rate, the same way that Bitcoin has matured. Like there's another step each way, and you're always going to attract in this industry right now. You're going to attract people who may not be here for the right reasons, and that happens in anything where there's an opportunity to make money potentially. But overall, the communities are becoming way more aware of what's right and wrong. The influencers are being held very accountable, as they should. I know I had to grow, and I know I needed to mature in my own development, my own presentations of my thoughts. And from 2016, 2017, where it was, what's the next coin I'm going to buy, it's now more of an ideology. And I have watched this space get more and better prepared, for really, I'd say, since really the beginning of the bear market, when realistic expectations began to kind of settle in to where we were, and that these altcoins weren't going to go up for forever. It was very easy to be right in 2017. It was very easy to be wrong in 2018. Even the people who typically, I would say, are always right, the ones that actually know what they've been doing, those people took a hard hit, and some of them lost their credibility. Some of them deserved to lose their credibility, but a lot of them, were, especially the ones that were there for the right reasons, they had a very hard 2018. And it helped a lot of people to understand, don't be relying on one person. Don't you dare just buy something without doing your own research, and you better make sure, and I'm going to say this, and I'm going to be very careful how I say it, but you better make sure that you take responsibility. And people don't want to. People like to to place blame, right? They like to not be wrong. They like it to be somebody else's fault. They like it just psychologically. They want to not be at fault for their mistakes. Now, in 2017 and beginning of 2018, it was you just trusted everybody, right? I mean, if they'd been right a couple times, boom, it's worth the risk. But then a lot of people would be a little bit disappointed, as 2018 rolled around. Wouldn't you say, Tim?
Yeah, in 2017, you could throw a dart in, with a blindfold on and hit a ICO or hit a
Yep.
uh, altcoin that was going to multiply 50 times, and it was just an amazing time that's when I first got in. I got in November 2017, and that's when I put some money in a Bitcoin ATM, and that's how it all got started for me. But I really didn't find out much about alts until alt season was over, but it was still very exciting. I remember Ripple was huge back then. Even the people at my work were talking about it. People
Sure.
that never talk about cryptocurrency were talking about Ripple, and I was intrigued by it. And when I was still new back then. I was looking for the next you know get rags to riches coin.
Sure. Ripple did do that. That's for sure.
Yeah, you're right. 2018 was more of a defining year. I think if you stuck around and you hung out through 2018, you earned my respect.
Agreed. No, and I mean, we fall into that category, and we have a lot of friends that did, influence or not. I mean, moderators or not. There's a lot of really great people, especially in the CCT community. But I mean, in other communities too, like Jeff's over at CI. That time period taught us a lot, and I think especially as the trading side goes, if you were a good trader, you could still make money. Where a lot of the holders, they suffer tremendously. And I'm way more of a holder than I am a trader, and I'm still feeling the effects of that. Whereas, my trades, sometimes I did great, sometimes I did not so great, but I was still doing something. You know, the holding was just constantly negative for the entire year. I mean, there was no success in 2018, and that carried over until early 2019, where before we broke out of that bear market.
Correct. In February, actually, I think it was February 18th when it started turning around.
By the way, for the record, on January 6th, I made a post. It's still out there. I said, I personally believe, in my opinion, that winter is over. It's the only post I ever made about winter being over. And I called it on that day. Now, I actually think that I knew that a couple days before. I think there were indicators. I don't want to pretend like I'm Nostradamus. I'm not, but I could feel the tide turning. And like you said, in February, we finally did. There's some signs of life. And then when we broke out of that what was it? We had to like break 3,800 or 4,200. I can't even remember now. But
Yeah,
there
I
was a
think it
moment.
was 3,200.
Yeah, it went all the way down to 3,200. That's for sure. But when it had gone back up, I think once we broke through like 4,200 or something like that, I think there was a little bit of like really like glimmers of hope at that point. And I can't remember what actually was the price when we actually broke out of the bear trend. But regardless, we did, Tim, and we're here now. We're sitting at 11 and a half ish. What's next for Bitcoin, dude? What do you think? I mean, without giving numbers.
I think there's a lot of room for Bitcoin to grow. I'm a very big fan of Bitcoin. I've done over 100 coin reviews, and Bitcoin is the only coin I touch. So that should tell you a lot right there. I don't trust altcoins as much. It doesn't mean I won't trade them, but my main goal is to obtain more sats. It's nothing more. If I'm going to trade an alt, that's all I'm going to use it for. I think Bitcoin is going to grow. It's going to grow very big. It's going to be like gold in my eyes. I don't think it's going to be a medium of exchange. It could be if Lightning Network catches on, but I mean, that's a whole different podcast. But
Absolutely.
I think at the end of the day, Bitcoin will be a lot like gold in the fact that it's a store of value. And if it turns out to be a store of value, then I think Bitcoin wins.
No, dude, we're on the exact same page. I don't even think that it work. It doesn't even need to work as a means of payment. There's plenty of opportunities, and I think stable coins will probably own that department. But like you said, to me, Bitcoin is digital gold. It's very cliche to say, but there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that it serves the purpose of a store of value in that department than it does better than a cryptocurrency in means of payment. It just doesn't have to do that to be successful. It's limited, it's finite, it's decentralized. We need to have value away from governments, away from stable coins, which tend to sometimes be more manipulated than they are stable. And we see that with the dollar. The US dollar is supposed to be stable in theory to an extent, but it inflates. You know why? Because they print more money. And when you have something like Tether, which is stable, it's honored as such, but can Tether's mode of printing actually sustain, I mean, what if Bitcoin goes back down? All that tether's left over. What's going to happen to it, right? I mean, it's the same concept, the same principle in which we deal with the US dollar. I don't want to get on a US dollar bashing incident because I am an American and I use US dollars all the time. But it'd be crazy of me not to admit that there's some big holes and faults in it. And is that success of the US dollar sustainable?
That's one reason why I love Bitcoin is that we know there's only going to be 21 million Bitcoin ever minted and or mined. I'm sorry, and it's nothing. Or the U.S. dollar is just it's printed nonstop. It seems like, and there's no accountability. There's a lot of accountability with Bitcoin. We know exactly how it's going to work. Math works wonderful, and Bitcoin is a perfect example of that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I know we both share that same conceptuality of what crypto and specifically Bitcoin can do for this planet. But and we can kind of sidestep a little bit here too, because this is one of my favorite topics. We have politics that go on. We have wars and disagreements between nations. But the one thing that it always seems to come down to is money. And when you can offer a more simplistic and fair, actually simplistic may not be the right word, but a more fair means of transferring wealth, whether it be from country to country or person to person, without the need of the government to oversee this. Of course, we all know the governments don't like the idea of Bitcoin. It would be bad for them in a lot of ways, right? It's a business. Governments make a lot of money, and through taxes and other ways that I won't get into at the moment. But it's a topic that I enjoy talking about, and like you said, that's almost another podcast in itself.
Yeah, you're right, Joe. There's a lot we could go over on that subject.
And we'll have to do it at some point because I like doing it.
Hey,
But
I enjoy it as well.
going back to kind of the purpose of like highlighting you in this podcast, Tim, is let's give the audience a little bit of things to kind of to oversee, or at least give them some insight into what that TA group that you and Ben are going to be doing on that small audience that you guys have put in that group. What is it like? What would you say is your number one priority as far as the knowledge that you're going to be sharing?
Well, I want these people. A lot of these people are coming into this group. Some of them have varying knowledge, and but they're still basically beginners that have no idea how to read a chart properly. And that's what my goal is when they leave this class. I want them to be able to look at a chart with confidence and understand that what they're doing is what other traders are doing. That's what it's all about. It's like to me, trading is like a pack animal kind of thing where everybody does basically the same thing and we come to the same results. And that's why trading works. It's because it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And I want these people to understand that when they look at a chart, they need to be able to identify a trend, be able to throw a Fibonacci on there, and be confident that the Fibonacci they threw on there is right. A lot of people ask me that, is my Fibonacci placed right? Blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? I want them to be able to be confident that they did it right.
I think another good point that I should make here is that this is all still so fresh on your mind. If you've been trading for 6 years and you're going to teach a new person, you might be a great teacher and it may be very natural for that person to be able to explain to a new person. But a lot of really good traders, number one, a lot of them don't have time to help you. And number two, when they do help you, they may have forgotten what those early obstacles may have been. And they may forget that this is important, or the way that these things need to be explained is so much more simplistic than you're explaining it, or that you're missing something completely altogether, right? And I think with your experience and how recent it is and your success, that this is something that will come very natural and easy for you because that's what's been on the forefront of your mind from day one.
Correct. Like it's fresh on my mind, Joe. I love sharing the knowledge I have so far. And, I have enough knowledge to teach these people enough to get them on a chart and have a little confidence. So with Ben in my back, Ben has a lot more experience than me. So we're making a good team and we're going to make a good course. And hopefully I plan on doing this more than once. So I know that a lot of people were kind of bummed out they didn't make the first class, but I mean, we will likely do this again. We're trying to make content that we can share over and over. You know what I mean? So don't fret. Don't be upset. You will get your chance.
For sure, man. And as we wind down this giveaway for the Bitcoin Radio launch. It's been really special to me that the support that I've had from the community. I know that we both share that same sentiment because you're dealing with a lot of the support that you've gotten, and it really motivates you. And so I appreciate you coming on and helping support me, Tim. You've always been one of the people. There's several of you, of course. I don't want to leave anybody out, but you've definitely been one of in that group that's always had my back and been encouraging for me to do this, because sometimes the same way that you don't realize why are you doing this, that's kind of the reason why I have similar thoughts. I don't know if I'm really that good at what I do, right? I have a lot of confidence at this point, and I will admit podcasting is very different than just doing my live videos in front of the audience that I'm so comfortable with and know how to entertain. And also I feel like half my value is just watching me look like a fool on video. It's fun. But nevertheless, man, I can relate a lot with you, Tim.
Well, I never miss your lives, Joe. You're good on camera.
I appreciate that.
No problem.
And also, I'll even go as far to say, like, that's something that I know for a fact that I wasn't always good at doing. I wasn't always great at that. And, I just had to do it. Right. And it's the same thing that you had to do. You had to just get out and do it and start taking it more seriously and start preparing yourself. And you did, man. And the success and the following that you gained from that, Tim, is not just deserving. I can't think of a better person to be doing how you're doing it. Like, you're the only person I've ever seen in my life. And I'll even go as far as to say this. Has there ever been anybody starting brand new like the way that you have? And I still consider you brand new to the big picture here, and end up being the #1 author on Bitcoin and TradingView.
I don't know anybody, Joe. I get kind of, or I don't like to brag, but I did go to #1 pretty quick, and it was humbling to see my name that high.
And you're the first person to admit you're not #1 because you know exactly what you're doing. I think you kind of pegged it. You're #1 because you care, right?
Right, and I think people pick up on that, and also my analysis is really genuine in a way. So I think that they appreciate the way I describe the charts, and it's developed a good following. So I'm very impressed, and I'm happy to see where this goes.
Absolutely, dude. All right, so we'll wind it down from here, Tim. Let's make sure we end though, and you can tell everybody where to find you.
Okay, yeah, you can follow me on Facebook, Tim Pace, TIMPACE, and or you can follow me on TradingView. It's Heisenberg BTC. So if you want to follow me on TradingView, that's where most of my followers are. And also on Twitter, you can follow me at TimPace30. That's my handle.
No underscores, no anything.
No underscores.
Tim Pace 30 on Twitter. The cool thing about Tim Pace's Twitter is that all his TradingView charts, they actually get posted to his Twitter. He's got it synced up. So I follow Tim on there, and I'm very grateful. It makes it easy for me to know and kind of get alert when Tim posts, so I can go see what he's doing next. Even though I see it on Facebook too. I mean, I see it in all areas, but I also support you too, Tim.
Well, I appreciate that, Joe. Yeah, I post 2 charts a day in CCT. That's my home.
Sometimes more. Yeah, man. I'm really grateful for that too, Tim. I know the community appreciates it. All right. Anyways, Tim, thanks a lot for coming on Bitcoin Radio. It means a lot that you're listening. I hope you really enjoyed today's podcast. It means a lot to me to have someone like Tim come on. As I've said before, he's a friend. He's been instrumental to some of the recent success of CCT. He's poured his heart and soul, and he does it for free. He does it because he cares. He wants Bitcoin to be successful. He wants you to be successful. Some people are good people, folks, and you're listening to Tim Pace, who's one of those people. Tim, thanks again, man.
Hey, it was great being on the show, Joe.
Dude, it's my pleasure. It'll happen again. We're following you closely, Tim, and I can't wait to see what happens next.
Well, I look forward to being on again.
Absolutely. All right, Bitcoin Radio, thanks again. We'll see you next time. This is where Bitcoin lives. Don't forget it. Mash that subscribe button if you haven't yet. We will do this again soon.